For me, this queer map project is really important personally, and I think also for the city of Calgary because it brings to light a lot of histories and events that are otherwise often overlooked or that are, even misrepresented and that have been misconstrued in the past, having to do with many forms of non-straight identity, including gay and lesbian identity. For me personally, it's important because I was born in Edmonton, and at the time that I was born in the 1970s, and because of the community that I grew up in, which was just outside of Edmonton, I was really deracinated from any connection with gay or lesbian history or the present or a possible future for myself as an emerging queer person. And a project like this, I think, brings into discourse or brings into discussion a lot of elements of regional and provincial history that otherwise just aren't really discussed. My approach to working with the research material that Kevin Allen put together was that after meeting with him and the other design team and the other members of the Calgary Institute of Humanities that are partners in the project, I took a look at the different episodes, the different historic episodes and locations that Kevin Allen's research highlights. Looking at the material, one thing that really struck me is that so many of these episodes were tied to pretty small areas of the city of Calgary landscape. And most of them had to do either with the University of Calgary campus or the confluence of the Bow and Elbow rivers. That really struck me because, of course, since time immemorial, this confluence of rivers has been a gathering place and a place of, conference and communication for many Indigenous peoples. It made an impression on me to think about how this confluence of rivers has continued to be a meeting place for gay and lesbian people, but also for trans people, for queer people, for two-spirited people. Thinking about that, I proposed to the design team that the map itself really be very isolated in what it represents geographically. But for me, it was important to keep the rivers central in the map, and that everything else, I wanted it to have this almost jumbled or collaged kind of effect. Things like the first presentation of the play Angels in America here in Calgary, many of the different aid organizations and support organizations that have existed in the city. Some of them I did know about, like Outlink is one that I was familiar with from my time when I studied at what was then the Alberta College of Art and Design. So I knew about Outlink from personal experience. But most of the places, I might have heard the name, but I wasn't really familiar with the different associations of the place, like the Cecil Hotel is a good example. So like most Calgarians, I knew about the Cecil Hotel as a place. I'd driven past it before or walked past it before, but I had no idea that it had these associations with, for example, a lesbian softball team. That was completely new for me. I have been really surprised at the number of changes that I've seen in the city, in the region. Most of the immediately obvious changes are architectural ones, which might not seem, so important for the purposes of our discussion, but I think because the map is so much about place, the disappearance of a lot of these gay and lesbian affiliated or run spaces is something that has really marked the architecture of the city. The increase of events rather than brick and mortar spaces. And this is something I've really been watching and wondering about in the last 5 to 7 years. I've noticed that now, especially young people, seem to be calling for and organizing these pop-up events that take place, sometimes in artist-run centers, sometimes by taking over bars that are not specifically designated as queer spaces, but maybe are friendly to non-straight communities. I think this map gives really important guidance about some of the activist strategies that have been used and the community and consciousness raising that has happened in this place, because we still need those skills and we need to build on them. We need to share them with each other. I think we have to be organized. We have to talk about these things. There's this mythology that homosexuality, in quotation marks, is some sort of invention of, late capitalism, or, it's a corrupt result of the excesses of modernity, just all of these lies that suggest that any form of non-heterosexual sexuality is a perversion, and that it is a recent invention, and that it is invented. And what I found so powerful about working on this map is that it demonstrates evidence that there have been non-straight people in this region for a very, very long time. And I think that not just ideologically, but maybe even teleologically, that's really complicated. That's a really complicated and just wrong kind of claim to make.